Well, hello there, Retro PC Durham. It's Chris here with another video. I got a pretty cool laptop here that I wanted to show off. You can probably tell, if you can't already, from the logo here that this is a Gateway laptop. It's kind of big, kind of heavy, as you can see here. It's kind of a big chonker. And this is actually an early 2000s laptop, and has some pretty interesting stuff going on with it. So I'm gonna, give you the standard overview here, and we'll, I guess, reveal some of the cool features as we go. Big exhaust coming out the back. Interesting, right? Our power connector, parallel and VGA outputs, as you can probably tell, right, based on the age. This is an early 2000s, so it would still have something like an LPT port. 2 USB 1 ports, modem and Ethernet. This is gigabit Ethernet. And then we have a video output here, and I think that's S-Video. It does have that little S symbol in there, so I believe that's an S-Video output. So we've got video out. Oh, come on this side. We've got a DVD-ROM drive and CD burner, another USB 1 port, and that is an ejectable. So it's possible that this Gateway would take alternative optical drives. So there may have been either future ones, or who knows, there might have been like a spare battery or something for this. Could have been a whole bunch of options. We've got a battery that's built into this, or removable battery that's in here. This Gateway M675 battery for this Gateway M675 laptop. Hard disk drive area here. It's got a little caddy for it. And this thing obviously supported docking as well. I didn't even know Gateway made docks for its products, but this thing does support it. Oh, come over on this side. We've got some more exhaust here on the side. Comes all the way underneath. And we've got audio outputs. We've got a Firewire mini or micro Firewire port, another USB port, a PC card slot, and a floppy disk drive. And the floppy drive, I think, was ejectable as well. Yeah, the floppy drive is ejectable as well. So this baby's got floppy and optical all together. And we've got some, as was common in this era of laptops, media control buttons. So that if you were plugging this into an external device like your TV to watch a movie, you had some like buttons that you could press. Or if you were, say, listening to music with the lid closed from these front powered stereo speakers, that you could do some of those controls as well. So it had some of that going on. So I want to show you something cool here. I'm just going to open up the access panel here. And I'm going to show you, I'm not going to go all the way in, so some of this you're going to have to take my word for it. But what I thought was kind of cool is, so I've got my memory here, it's standard DDR memory, and I wasn't able to get anything more than just a gig of RAM on this. And then underneath this little fan here, there's an ATI video card, so it's got a GPU. And then this double cooling setup here, underneath this portion here, and all this copper piping and all this cooling, is an LGA 478 socket. Not a mobile, no, a full-size LGA 478 socket, which means it's got a desktop processor in it. Yeah, that's right. So the original processor that was in here, I honestly don't even remember what it was. It was a Pentium 4, obviously. But I have a lot of LGA 478 processors. So I had a Prescott 2.8 gigahertz, so that's a single core hyper-threaded processor that theoretically could run Windows 10. But I have a lot of trouble with, on desktop side, finding motherboards of this era that can support enough memory to run Windows and don't have like a whole bunch of exploded caps on them. But in this case, in the laptop, this one's still running fine, and kind of cool that it has that feature. So anyways, I upgraded that in this unit, and it works. It does run the fans. I'll use this screwdriver instead. It does run the fans pretty much all the time as a result of having such a, I guess, a Prescott processor installed. And it's the third highest. I think Prescott went up to 3.2 gigahertz on LGA 478. And this is 2.8, so it's pretty hot in terms of frequency and capability. All right, next up we will show. I push this big pad here. You can see that, and that allows me to single finger open up the laptop. Kind of cool. Here's our keyboard area, pretty good shape. Touchpad, keyboard buttons, and then the scroll is actually like a wheel, like the Price is Right wheel. So you don't have like a button or something to hold down. It's like an actual dial. It's kind of cool. Full-size keyboard with a numeric keypad, which is always kind of cool to see that on a bigger laptop. And then we got all our power buttons and connect buttons. And then for a screen, we've got this 17-inch, 16 by 9-inch screen. So this is a big guy, right? This is the kind of laptop from a modern perspective. I like these kinds of laptops, right? This kind of desktop replacement style system that's got a whole bunch of ports and functionality and lots of power. It's pretty cool. I don't know if you can't. It's hard to see in the light, but the power adapter for this guy, this Gateway power adapter, it has a fan. There's a fan inside the power adapter. I have never in my life seen a power brick for a laptop that had to have its own cooling fan in it. I think this is actually a pretty cool idea, right? If you think about how warm bricks can get usually, the idea that it has its own fan to keep itself cool. Okay, we are booted up into Windows here now, and can you hear? You might be able to hear in the background the fans going. Now, I'm relatively used to the sound of laptop fans going on a regular basis, as I mentioned, being used to having like desktop replacement style laptops where they've got bigger fans and you're playing games on them and stuff. If you have a gaming laptop, you may know what I mean. And yeah, this would be no exception in terms of its noise level. Not terrible, but definitely noticeable, but something that over a long period of time you'd end up drowning out, and you hardly even notice, especially if you're wearing something like headphones. You're not really going to hear that going on anyway. It's someone else's problem who's may or may not be in the room. All right, let's take a look at what we've got for specs. I'm going to run hardware info. So if you weren't aware, hardware info, the 32-bit version of that will run on older versions of Windows. The 64-bit, obviously, you have to have a 64-bit operating system to use. But older OSs, like the 32-bit version, the standard 32-bit version of Windows XP, will run hardware info. So our specs coming up here now. As I mentioned, the processor on this is a Prescott. So you can see here, LGA 478, and that is a single-core, hyper-threaded 2.8 gigahertz processor, desktop processor running in this laptop. Kind of awesome. The motherboard on here noted here is from the model. It's a Gateway M675 laptop. PRR, I guess, is maybe the submodel. Drives noted here. We've got that DVD-ROM drive, as well as a 40 gig hard drive in here, and this is an IDE hard drive, right? So this is pre-SATA. Another one of those limiting factors in terms of performance. The drive caddy area, you probably have enough room in there that you could be able to fit in some form of adapter. I know that there are some that exist where you can have like an SD to IDE or a CF IDE adapter that kind of makes sure the power is in there correctly to make that work. So that is an option for you if you ever wanted to move away from a standard spinning disk. But this one seems to be running very well and doesn't have it much in the way of degradation. Still got that green check mark from the Smart Check. The graphics card that's in here, as I mentioned, is a GPU, right? It's a standalone graphics adapter, which, I mean, the Prescott processor doesn't have its own integrated graphics, but what I mean is it's not a cheap, shared onboard graphics card that's using system memory or anything like that. So it's a Radeon 9600/9700, and it is a 64 megabyte video card. So pretty decent for laptop graphics from this time period, right? This like 2000 to 2002 era. And then we've got 1 gig of memory. I don't have any 1 gig DDR SODIMMs to be able to increase this any farther than the two 512 sticks, unfortunately. So, you know, that kind of limited the maximum memory potential of this system. But 1 gig is pretty decent for what we're looking at doing this on this system here. And then we're running Windows XP Home Edition with Service Pack 3 and a whole bunch of other updates installed on this system. And that's just to line up with the code or the serial number and license key that was included with this machine. I just installed a couple trial pieces here. So we've got Unreal Tournament 2004, the demo for Doom 3, the demo for Need for Speed Underground, the demo for Halo, which are, you know, kind of this time period of games that you might have tried. And I just wanted to see how the performance was going to be on these games to show off how well they do or don't run given the processor and the graphics card and the memory that's installed on this system. Here's our settings for Halo. So 1024 by 768, which isn't the max resolution of the screen. We can maybe see if we can try to... Yeah, so 1024 by 768 resolution. Refresh rate set to 60 hertz, no VSync, and then we're on kind of no shadows and low stuff. So from a performance perspective, this is kind of hard to move around without the so I can't really move here very well with the touchpad and WSAD movement. It's weird. But we're, what, in the like 30 to 40 range? Depending on how you're doing. Averaging out around 30. So, I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not great. Certainly playable, right? I mean, it's not bad. All right, we got NFS Underground 2 loaded up here. And settings-wise, 1024 by 768 on low. Let's see how we drive. My driving is going to be pretty horrible here. My memories of playing racing games in my PC gaming days did involve using a wheel and pedal. So keyboard steering was never really something I picked up the skill to be able to handle very well. Unless you count trying to drive the car in like the original Grand Theft Auto, that isometric view. But we're hovering in the in the high 50s and low 60s here, driving, just free roaming around town. And that's, I'd say, okay. I mean, that's a pretty decent driving experience. Just getting started. Obviously, we're at low, but, in these older games, I think you can get away with a little bit of poorer graphic fidelity. If you're going to be able to get some fun gameplay out of it. So, yeah, move on to the next game. Here with the groundbreaking space horror Doom 3. And just showing our settings here. Low quality, 800 by 600 with full screen. And we will load up and see how this one is working. Here we are, as I mentioned, with the 800 by 600 setting.
My city is a smoke
And
facility. Please smoke only in designated areas. Thank you for your cooperation.
we're in the 30 to 45 range, it looks like. mean, that's not terrible. Again, pardon me with the mouse movement.
I'm here because there seems to be some very serious.
Here's your cutscene coming through.
Do I need to remind you of the groundbreaking work that we're doing here?
No, but I've been authorized by the board to look at.
I would say 30 to 60 FPS on this one, just standard. When you get into combat, you're probably going to go down into the 20s. Here's our Unreal Tournament 2004 settings here. We are using D3D rendering, 1024 by 768, and we're looking at most of the features on, except for trilinear filtering, and the details are in the low and low range and then blob shadows. So, you know, not the lowest possible, but relatively low overall in terms of performance. All right, just spectating a bot match here and taking a look at performance range. Not too bad in terms of performance. I would expect in a game like this, Unreal Tournaments have always, you know, all of them are pretty well designed games in terms of optimization. So we got a crowd of people, a lot of particle effects. We're still in the, you know, we're still above 60 FPS, which is good. And that's kind of where I'd want to be with any game from this era is, you know, with era appropriate hardware like this is a good range to be in. So yeah, this would be a fun UT 2004 is a great, you know, good example of the type of era specific game that'd be fun to play on a machine like this. That will complete my look at this Gateway M675 Pentium 4 Prescott laptop. A lot of fun getting this machine cleaned up and doing those upgrades to kind of make it something lasting and fun to do. So hopefully this this machine will find a home somewhere. If someone looking for some retro gaming, or you know, maybe it could be one of those, you know, generational machines, right? It's got pretty decent performance for you know, its age. Having a floppy drive and a CD burner in it, you know, maybe someone can have something like this on a shelf on the side of their bench if they want to, like, you know, use for copying older software from like Windows 98 era stuff. Without having to have a full XP machine set up. Like, there's a lot of uses for an older machine like this to be able to work. And obviously, yes, if you want to plug it into the internet, you can. I don't recommend doing that for anything more than just, you know, giggles, because it's not safe to do so from a security perspective. Even having that, something like that, just on your network for more than just a short period of time can represent some possible security issues within that environment. So yeah, it can do it. Don't recommend it. If you are going to do it, take precautions. Have it on a separate network, like a separate LAN environment from the rest of your network on your other machines, so you know, it can't represent too much of a risk. But a fun machine anyway. So hope you enjoyed taking a look at this. Let me know in the comments below if you you know, had one of these laptops or something similar to it and your experience with that. If you have any recommended games from this era that you know, like to play or remember playing, or like to test machines of this era, if you do the same thing as me with these machines, I can, you know, look at the demo versions of those as well. I just grabbed a couple that I remember playing back in the day that I would try out that maybe were a little more 3D oriented. You know, playing something like the Baldur's Gate series or the Icewind Dale, those games as well. I used to play those a lot, but they're not as graphically intensive, so, you know, not as fun to show off on the screen here as a 3D shooter would be. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this machine with me. As always, I hope you're staying safe and healthy. We'll catch you in the next one.